Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Proud to be LBUSD podcast series, Leading Students Through Times of Crisis. I'm your host, Christopher J. Itzen, and for our second episode, I'm so pleased to introduce our guests. We have a pretty full house today, but we are, of course, maintaining social distancing guidelines. First, we have Dr. Jill Baker, Deputy Superintendent and soon to be the new Superintendent of LB Schools, Dr. Tiffany Brown, Assistant Superintendent of School Support Services and soon to be Deputy Superintendent of Schools, and last but definitely not least, our 3 student leaders that we'd like to welcome: April Brown, a junior at Millikan High School, Mina Mata, a senior from Wilson High School, and Jaslyn Tupu, who is also a junior from Jordan. Thank you all for joining us today. You can say hi.
Hi.
Hi. All right, so as we start, thank you all for joining us. So we're going to start really kind of digging with our students. And so the first thing I want to just ask you is, how are you doing right now? How are you doing with everything that's kind of going on? How are you feeling at this moment?
It's doing great, managing through the time being, but so far getting through it.
I'm doing great. It's nice having a conversation with fresh faces. It's been a while.
I'm feeling good. I'm really thankful to be here and glad that I get to talk about this.
Awesome. Well, thank you. So let's get right into it. So this is a pretty unique time. And so the first, I'm going to kind of frame just a few questions all together. You don't have to answer every single part, but just kind of your perspective. So what are some of the challenges you've faced in regards to the school closures, or even some of the challenges you feel your peers are dealing with, what you're hearing, from the moment March 13th happened to where we're at now? What's kind of been the impact maybe on your learning or even just your life in general, your social life? What's helped you the most? Kind of where are you at? Reflect on how this experience has been at this moment.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and start this off. With me reading the questions and considering what I've been struggling with, one common factor I continued seeing with my general schoolwork was a bunch of confusion and having a burden with the schoolwork. And I feel like the teachers and staff needs to be on the same page. When I say that, I'm referring to platforms of what's being used to distribute the schoolwork. For example, I have multiple teachers using Google Classroom, which I think is a great format for posting homework and tests and assignments because it's all in one format. I can go straight to it and I could turn it in right there. But then there's other teachers that may use different platforms to send the work, and then it becomes confusing and it starts raising anxiety in me and my peers because then we get confused and think that we have more work or less work, and we're probably going to miss a deadline because now we're looking at different platforms. And I feel like teachers should all be on the same page, and that should be like a requirement or something.
I agree that there's much, the infrastructure definitely needs a little bit of work. It would be really easy if there was one place in which all of the work was assigned, but I think that throughout me and my peers, I had a lot of trouble staying motivated throughout this time. I felt that there was the focus on learning was really taken away, and a lot of my teachers personally were just assigning work because they felt that they needed to keep us busy, but I don't think that there was really a focus on having us develop our minds and stay engaged in current events and really understanding the depth of what's going on right now. And I think that it would be really great if we would get back to our learning. Not a lot of my teachers put in the effort to make sure we were attending our Zooms and doing all of our work and really getting out of it what we would have been during class.
I completely agree with both of you. One of the challenges I think some of my peers have faced is often maintaining focus within a home environment, which can be very difficult compared to a school environment. Not everybody has access to technology or internet or even a quiet place to work at home. And I feel that can affect somewhat of your learning. Yeah.
And I would like to piggyback off of what Mina was saying, that I would like to acknowledge to teachers to try to put more effort in trying to get their students more engaged. Because again, students do need to consider that we're all learning new ways how to get this all done. We're all doing it at the same time. But then yet teachers need to find different ways to get us engaged. Because an example would be one of my teachers. She's very considerate on timestamps and wanting to assign work and how much work, because she understands that we're all learning the same thing and there's other classwork that needs to be done. So instead of her trying to, exploit a bunch of information within one sitting period of 1 week, she'll probably assign it on a Monday and won't say if it's an essay, it's due at the end of the month. go at your own pace, send in your draft when you need to. I'll feed back to you. But with that, for us to be more engaged, we also need better communication skills with the teachers. To always have to have patience and wait for an email doesn't help when we're trying to retain or learn information, because then now me and my peers feel like we're not actually learning anything anymore. It's just trying to do work to get the credit. So, for example, the Remind app is my favorite app with teachers because it is a verified kind of like text message straight to the teacher, and they can respond to you immediately, opposed to an email where you send an email and you got to wait for a certain time period. And you probably won't hear back from your teacher till the end of the week. And then you still have to turn in the work, and you don't even know if your work is accurate or not. So that's something that needs to be brought up to teachers.
What are some other things that you think would help you to feel motivated? Imagine that you have to do distance learning for part of next year, if that happens. What advice would you give to teachers or counselors or other staff to help you to feel more motivated?
I really enjoyed a lot of my face-to-face Zoom classes that I had. I felt more motivated when I could actually see my teachers and my peers working all together on something. We have breakout rooms where we work on group projects, and I also thought that one of my teachers, actually my speech and debate teacher, had us looking at current events every week. We would have to write something, an editorial, a 1-minute speech, have to come up with some sort of debate that we would do on the Zoom, and it was really engaging. And I think that obviously that's a more communicative class where a lot of people are talking to each other, and the literature is you have to be talking to another person, and that's different from all other classes. But I think that it's really important that teachers understand how important it is for us to see each other and recognize that we're all doing something together apart from just assigning something that you just do on your own.
Jocelyn, you brought up something that we've heard a lot about, challenges that prevent a student from being able to really focus at home. Have you heard, or do you have any ideas, or have you heard peers share any ideas about what we could do to help that?
I'm not sure about that advice.
Have either of the two of you, do you have any thoughts about that? Because it's something we've heard a lot about, and it's something that we've been trying to plan for, but I'm wondering if you have ideas of things that have really worked for some of your friends or people that you know while they're trying to learn at home, when there may be multiple people at home or others in the house.
Well, if I were in that situation, I would probably want to just be constantly reminded. And you can use the term being babied if you'd like, because, some teachers feel as though we're of age to set some principles for ourselves and organize a schedule for ourselves so we can get the work done. But I feel like, again, with these restrictions, teachers can put themselves to be more involved like that. So, for example, the teacher that I work with, when she assigns a work, she'll send an email on School Loop and send a reminder on Google Classroom and send a remind text so that the parents can see it, so that they know what's going on, and so that I can constantly be reminded throughout the week. So to just have that constant reminder of where the work is could possibly help me stay just slightly motivated, or at least have it in the back of my mind okay, well, I know I have this work to do. And then if the parents will see it, then they'll know and have a reason for me to focus on my school no matter what may be going on at home. Because if parents are so concerned about their students, getting through high school and getting good grades, then they should know, hey, Mom, Dad, I have some work I need to do. You saw the reminders. So.
All right, I want to kind of explore that a little bit. So I hear a lot about interface and what you're talking about, that connection, right? So Mina brought up that even just the Zoom, right? It's okay, I can't be around anybody. And Jocelyn, you said when we started, you're it's nice to just be face to face with people, right? And so that seems to be a driver in everything, that all three of you have said. So your generation has this moniker as the tech generation, right? Everybody supposedly has a phone and everybody is on the computer all the time. Is that true?
I think it is. I think we got kind of lucky to not grow up with it our entire lives, but still be introduced to it. we had most of our childhood without having a phone. I think around middle school is when everyone started to get a phone, and then they started their social media pages and everything. So I think we got really lucky that not necessarily lucky, but it was good that we were the generation that was faced with this. So we at least kind of knew how to work a Zoom and how to join a Google Meet and follow along on a Google Classroom. So I think that the younger generations, even my brother who's in 7th grade, was totally unfazed with having to switch to a completely virtual classroom.
That's a great point.
I mean, I don't think we're always on our phones, but if we were, I think it would be to do it in useful purposes. If we were using technology, we'd be, using it to interact with our teachers and, still communicate with them and be able to continue our education. So thankfully, we are mastered in technology where we got to do that.
And I feel like technology with our generation should be used more as an assistance or benefit us instead of completely relying to it, but it does help with us maneuvering our education. And again, with other platforms like Instagram and Snapchat, some teachers have that and they incorporate their schoolwork into Instagram posts. And that's another way we get more engaged and involved. It's fun. Seeing your teacher post about the school assignment, it's kind of funny, but it's worth it and you still get points. That's what some of the teachers at Millikan are doing. And I feel like that's a great way to keep us involved. So it does benefit us.
And what about, so take it outside of academics, right? So we're relational beings, right? We need to be around people and be connected. And in one fell swoop, that Friday ended and it was like, okay, now you can't see anybody. And we were all isolated and we're all kind of going through that. We see that in the media and there's all this about that isolation, how difficult that is. How have you kept in touch with your friends and your community, your peers? Talk a little bit about that struggle or where you've seen some wins, where technology maybe has helped. How's that been for you?
Well, when we would have assignments, my friends, we would always go on group chat or text message and conversation on the phone just to get through the work together, and we would, complete assignments all together.
Aside from academics, I'm fortunate that my friends and I FaceTime before the pandemic. We leave each other and we FaceTime call each other on the way home, and then we FaceTime when we get home. We are super attached at the hip. So FaceTime has really been my main form of communication, and we love doing the huge FaceTimes that Apple now has, or even creating Zoom. My birthday was during the pandemic, and I created a Zoom birthday party, and there's little games that you can play on the side, and I think it's really important that you keep everything fun. And at a certain point, it got kind of dreary to ask oh, how are you, or what did you do today? Because for the most part, it was the same thing. I just sat at home, tried to be active, didn't get much done. And I think that it was kind of almost depressing to just continue to talk about the pandemic and talk about, oh, we would have been doing this now. So we tried to watch new movies on Zoom and play games and just try and talk about other things. We started reading a lot more. So we started book clubs, and it was really fun to just kind of derail from what was going on in the world for a little bit.
And I also do enjoy that building relationship with teachers and students outside of academics. It's worth it. Some of my teachers go live on Instagram and have their students join and just to sit there and talk, nothing related to school. And again, with the major Zoom calls or group FaceTimes, it's really fun. And to have teachers call you sometimes to check up on you and just talk about anything besides what's actually going on, to just keep their students positive. It's nice, it's enjoyable, and I feel like all teachers should try to do that.
So it sounds like there's actually some positive things that have come out of a really hard time already. It doesn't take away from how hard the time is for families, but that's a great example. What are some other ways that you feel like you've either grown or changed in what you've had to go through that might be helpful for other students or other people to hear?
I would like to start that. I can speak for majority of LBUSD students saying that we learned how much we truly appreciate school, because, you know, during the hard times of like finals week and tests and quizzes and, you know, the stress of school, we would complain so much about, you know, oh, I don't want to be at school anymore, or I should probably skip school today so I don't have to do this assignment, or I got all this homework. But now when we take away sitting in the classroom and being face-to-face with the teacher and taking away the social part of it, which the social part of school fits into a lot of us learning and gaining education, when we take all those factors out and we're just left at home with schoolwork, now we're realizing, like, dang, I really miss sitting in the classroom. I miss hearing the lesson out loud in front of me from my teacher, my favorite teacher, my probably not favorite teacher. You know, I feel like a lot of us have really learned to finally appreciate our education, and now we can build from that and grow into better, positive students of the future.
We've missed you that much, too.
Doesn't seem right to be at a school without any student voices.
You never really know how much you miss school till you're forced to stay home and all that stuff.
Words we never thought we'd hear.
From 3 high school students.
Even that the noise, you know, it's our film crew was out at an elementary school working on a project, and we walked into a classroom, and it was an elementary school classroom, and it was still set up from St. Patrick's Day. And it was like time had stood still, you know, and it was so quiet, and it was so weird, and it just like when I was a teacher, I had a loud classroom. Like I loved hearing that, you know, the constant noise of students talking and connecting with each other. And so it's just that oddness of that. So we miss you too, all, you know, across the whole system. So what else? So let's talk about, you know, reflect on what Dr. Baker's asking, really. What have you learned from this? And even what are some positives that have come out of it? So you've talked about just that desire for having that connection. What else?
I think you grow to be more patient when you really understand the purpose of, you know, why we're staying home and why we're in quarantine is to keep us safe. So you really understand, you know, eventually you will see your friends and teachers, and you learn to be patient from that.
I agree with that. I also think it's really powerful to see the way that the class of 2020 has come together. I've seen a lot of people reach out, and I've met so many people through like college Facebook pages, and I love all of the like lives that people are doing, and seeing Obama and LeBron like congratulating you is really cool. And I think a lot of people are like, well, we lost, but we also really won. And it's nice to be recognized by people. I mean, obviously it's less personal than what we would have actually gotten at our normal graduation, but I think that recognition was really cool. And it's nice to see us all kind of uniting, because we are very unique in experiencing this together. Like there hasn't really been a time when they've canceled graduation and all senior activities. So I think it's really nice and unique that we got to experience it together.
Do you have any stories that you could share with us from the senior experience? Because I know your group is a group that we've just spent so much time thinking about and really feeling for your situation. Or are there any little stories over the time that you think would be good for other people to hear in what your senior experience has been?
Well, I definitely think that it was really important for us to set goals, and because we were really down at the beginning, because for most of your high school experience, everyone is like, just wait until second semester senior year, and then you can just relax, and you don't have to worry about your APs anymore or your grades. Like, well, you do have to worry about them, but just as long as you are passing, you're fine to graduate unless you have a scholarship. But for the most part, my whole friend group was completely fine with our grades, and we were just so excited. We were like, this is our time. We can not do whatever we want, but we can really just like take it all in and be here to make the memories. And we were just ready. We were getting accepted into colleges. And one thing that like was fun, we did a lot of like the decision day posts was really fun, like seeing your friends on Instagram and seeing where they were going and getting to congratulate them. So that was nice. And a few of my friends had like social distance picnics. And my friends actually had like a drive-through parade for my birthday party, which was really like overwhelming. I was not expecting it at all. It was a complete surprise, and it really shocked me, and like was really like astounding to see like that many people come together for something like that. And there's been a lot of work like through the Assistance League. I've had a lot of meetings, and the mentors have come to the homes and dropped off signs. So we all have really cute yard signs that say, like, congratulations to the class of 2020. And so it feels good to be recognized for your work.
Well, want to ask a question. Just you've described a lot of different emotions. I think, Mina, you said depressed, and someone else, you're just talking about things being hard. I just wonder, over the course of the last few months, like I kind of imagine a little bit of a roller coaster ride as you're describing it. Tell a little bit about that. What has it been like, and are there things that have made you go up and feel better, and are there things that have made it harder that you're willing to talk about?
For me, it definitely was a roller coaster, because the day that we got the notification that we're not gonna be going back to school, the truth is, the first reaction everyone had on campus, everyone was excited to go home. They thought they were going to get an early spring break, and they thought, just more time to study for the SAT and the ACT that was coming up in 2 weeks. So everyone kind of like had that relief moment, and things did get crazy at my school. That's a different story, and it was kind of funny. But then afterwards, for me and my friend Ayana, she's my best friend at school, we went straight to the principal, started asking her, well, what about the SAT? What about this? What's going to happen? And we just started getting concerned. And as the weeks went by, it was always daily information, and things kept changing. And it kind of felt like my emotions were kind of being played a lot, because we were all confused. We were all scared. We didn't know what was going on. This is history being made in the making, and we just wanted answers, and we could never get a clear answer. So what went from happiness and excitement of a few more days of a break went to a deep downfall on the roller coaster to like fear and depression and anxiety. And now we're finally kind of slightly getting out of that pit in the roller coaster, but it's still not the end yet. And for me, I just really can't wait for this to eventually end. I want to eventually go back to school, even if it's just for one day. That would be nice to just see some faces again, some teachers.
Yeah. What, turned into like just a few weeks off turned into like the rest of the school year. So I think that was a bit of a roller coaster, because, you were expecting to come back, and then ended up having the whole school year. And there was a lot of like activities that people missed out on. I think that really causes, depression in somebody.
I empathize with the juniors. I know that this is like definitely a pivotal point in your life where you're starting to like think more about college and you're becoming an adult, and it's definitely like a scary time, and you want to like have the patience to like be able to do your best and focus and not have to worry about, is the world ending, or am I going to get COVID? Like, you don't need to worry about that, especially when you're trying to take your SAT and get through your AP exams and boost your GPA, and like totally empathize with you guys. And I'm really sorry that happened to you. But I agree that it's really been an up and down. I was in a freshman class as a TA when the news came out, and the freshman, there was like a kid dancing on a table. And I was like, this is not exactly the news that we want to hear. We want our school to stay open. And he was like, no, we get spring break. And I was like, I get it. But the seniors were really sad. There was like movie night in that time. That was that whole chunk. And I think we were all okay with it. We were like, it's fine. We'll just have an extra spring break. And then when we heard the news, and it just kept getting pushed back further and further. And I don't think any of us were expecting to still see the world like this at this exact time. We were hoping to have moved forward and progressed past this.
And if we were to continue talking about empathy real quick, if we were to go back to the conversation earlier about us coming together, that is also a major thing that happened when we first got the news, because, students, we're thinking about ourselves. We're thinking about, okay, I feel this way, so I'm glad that we get to go home. But then once we finally got to humble ourselves and start thinking about the other classmen, when the juniors finally realized that the seniors, they got thrown into a situation that they didn't expect nor were ready for, it made us realize, like, okay, this isn't just about us anymore. We need to focus on other students that got the rest of the year taken away. And then also for the seniors, it took the seniors to realize that the juniors are about to go through a very tough year, senior year, with all these new changes. Because the seniors, I empathize for you guys a lot too, because you guys have to start college mentally. For me, you guys have to mentally start college earlier now because now it's just, okay, well, let me think about where I want to go. Now I already took this test scores, so I don't have to worry about that. But then for the juniors, we never got to take the SAT. Some students got to take the AP test, but then that didn't work out because the system crashed. And so now it's just more anxiety and fear for the juniors, because now it's, okay, well, what colleges are requiring this anymore? What are we going to do for senior year? Do I have to take the test again? Do I have to, do it twice? Do I have to start summer school now just to get ahead? Or am I behind? And it's just a lot of fear going on. But with all of that fear, it kind of brought LBUSD students more together now, because now we're finally thinking about not ourselves. We're not thinking about ourselves anymore. We're thinking about other people and other students now. And that's another positive thing I feel like came from the lockdown.
Such wisdom.
Yeah,
such wisdom and such maturity. Wow.
So let's reflect. Let's go back, right? You've all kind of alluded to this, right? When you're in high school, it's moving so fast. I always used to say to my freshmen, you're going to blink and it's going to be senior year and you're going to be walking across the stage. And then, yeah. And then at graduation, I'd look at them and say, was I right? And they go, where did high school go? It goes by so fast, right? And so we think about that. And I've had some conversations with some students over this time and really reflecting on and working in social media, seeing what a lot of people are thinking through their posts. What are some memories of your time in high school? You've been there for 4 years. You've been there for almost 3. What are some times that you now look back on that were amazing, that you think are those pivotal moments before all of this happened, that now you think, man, I wish I would have been more mindful because this was an amazing experience, or something that I'm so glad happened, even with all of this trauma towards the end?
I think for me, we used to have assemblies where we would honor students based off their grade level, and they would get awards and pins. And that was kind of one of the moments where you had all of the students within each grade level within one room of your pathway. So that's definitely something that, I probably took for granted. And I wish I would have been more appreciative of that type of moment.
Definitely one of my favorite memories from Wilson is Link Crew. This year I was really lucky enough to be a commissioner, and it was really, honestly, a lot of work. And my friends that were commissioners too, we would always be like, oh my gosh, are you really going to get all this done in this time? And then show up to school at 5:30 and be ready, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed for these 500 freshmen who are going to come in. And it was just, I totally took it for granted. It was really one of the most powerful experiences to see 180 juniors and seniors all coming together and just so excited to introduce these freshmen and just let them have a very good transition into high school, which is definitely a rocky start at first. And I remember being a freshman walking into those gym doors at 8:03 because it's Link Crew, and I was so nervous that it was a typo. And I was like, it's 8:30, should I go early? I was freaking out. So I was like, hey, I'll go at 8:03, and they bring the doors open and you run in, and there's so many people in the gym. It's hot, it's sweaty, and they're screaming at you, and you're really scared, but it's also just really exciting, and I'll never forget the moment and just the energy in that room at the time.
My favorite moment by far is organizing our Kobe and Gianna Day rally that we had at school. It was a very big rally, and it turned out better than I expected, because it's a joke between me and our ASB director. I'm that undercover ASB student. I'm so busy I can't even have the class, but I'm always pitching ideas and coming with activities. And it became a learning moment for me because I just wanted to organize it and watch it happen. And their MC in ASB was like, no, you need to do it. You organized it. You came with the idea. You need to MC and speak in front of all these kids. And it was very intimidating. It was the second time I had to MC, but it was a big learning moment, and I got a lot of feedback from it. And it gave a lot of good recognition to our school student council and ASB. And, what started off from just me being a part of Black History Month in sophomore year turned out to me being more involved with the school in general for junior year. And it's my favorite moment, and I can't wait to do it again for senior year.
I love that. That's just a great example, too, of courage. And it makes me think about just this last few months, even the need to have courage in different situations. Can you think of something that you personally have had to have courage about in the last few months? Could be anything, something in your interaction with your family or with your peers or with a teacher.
I'm a valedictorian at my school, and I was really excited to audition to give the speech at graduation, and unfortunately I missed out on that opportunity. But during that time, we were supposed to have our auditions around March 20th, so we missed out on our auditions, but most of us already had our speeches ready and put together. So a bunch of the valedictorians decided to come together, and we ended up combining all of our speeches, but I was really nervous to present the idea to our activities director and all of the people who were putting together our senior recognition ceremony. And I think that was probably one of my most courageous moments in these last few months.
That's a great example, too. And also, Mina, we corresponded about your valedictorian speech. And so just to acknowledge, like, even in adult interaction, that you were able to express yourself about something that had gone on right to me, and to use the opportunity to practice that, adult professional interaction and express yourself, and did such a nice job with that too.
And make it happen. Mm-hmm. So from the use of your voice, positive things happen.
Mina, congratulations on being valedictorian. That's such a huge accomplishment. My current courageous moment is being here to voice my opinion, because for years, my peers will always give me information to try to talk to adults, because it's easy for me to talk to adults. I don't know why, it's just theirs in me, my personality. It's very easy for me to just communicate with staff members, but the second I got invited to be here, it just took a lot more courage to be able to sit in front of the superintendent and just be like, hey, I'm another one of your students. Here's my opinion. Don't be mad. But after this, I would say this will definitely be a start point of a milestone for me and my communication skills. And hopefully this will be a major impact to my peers and to show them, hey, I did it. You can do it too.
You had courage. Good for you.
Yeah, I'd like to second what she said. Definitely being here is a courage to come, because when I was first asked by my ASB coordinator, I was kind of nervous, but I was glad that she picked me. I was like, out of all of the ASB students, I felt proud that I was picked. So definitely being here took me a lot of courage.
Thank you to all of our ASB coordinators who picked us to represent our schools.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, that's so funny, because it's so awesome, because when, for our audience at home, when we were initially doing this, it was a totally different format, and you were going to be part of a Zoom call. And when I reached out to your activities directors, and I asked, hey, I need some students, and, they're crazy busy right now as well, trying to figure out how to be activities directors in the midst of this. And I work with them a lot. And so one of them I happen to live with, and it was a little scary to go, hey, I need you to do one more thing and get us a student. And they all jumped so quickly on, oh, I have the student for you. Here they are. Boom, boom, boom. It was so fast. And they really had high praise for all of you. And then everything changed. I'm like, oh, great. Now they're not going to be able to do it, and this is going to fall apart. But all three of you, I want to thank you for being able to jump right in and adapt and say, we'll come to the studio. Let's make this happen. And more importantly, being willing to have that courage to be a voice to us, to the adults, to hear your perspective, but also to your community, to your other students and your families, to say that we're speaking for a lot of students right now, thousands of students, and we appreciate that. And so I want to ask you two questions. We'll start with one, and then we'll kind of see where it goes, and then we'll go into the other one. So what advice do you have for us? When you're thinking of our school leaders, your principals, district administrators, you're the generation that's had to go through this first, right? And now that it's lessons learned, we're coming towards the end of the year. Mina, you're getting ready to navigate this in college. The other two, you're facing what's next you're going to look like. What advice do you have? You've talked a little bit about the platforms and maybe some more synergy around that, or cohesion. You've talked about how important it has been to use these technologies to interface. What else? What do we need to hear as we're thinking about next steps?
I definitely think mutual respect is really important. I know that when I feel respected by the important adults in my life, I definitely see them differently and am more able to communicate with them. And I think that if teachers and staff and leaders in the school district were able to see that the students are just doing their best, then the students would reflect that back to them, and they would really put all they have into it and make sure that their work is getting completed. And not only that their work's being completed, but that it's thorough and that they're actually getting something from it, rather than just copying it or finding it online, just trying to feel like they actually accomplished something and learned from it.
I completely agree with that. I feel like respect is a major thing that lacks in both some staff members and some students. And I feel like some teachers just won't admit it, or they won't be honest with it, because on campus, in person, again, communication is always better, but then yet sometimes, it's some egos can be involved with some teachers, and I feel like some teachers just need to put that aside and realize that this is still a student. Despite age, maturity level differs in everybody. And there are students that need to respect teachers as well. But when the adult doesn't give off that general respect to a student, then that makes us feel like, okay, they're going to treat us like a child. They're not going to take us seriously. I don't want to do this anymore. And it is a common issue that I've lived with throughout my years of just being a student in general, since elementary to today. And it could vary in just general, I'm an adult, you're a child. It can vary from the color of my skin sometimes. That also gets involved. It can be involved with my gender, because I'm a girl. You have to talk or speak this way to me if you want to get your point across. And that's why, again, I'm just so glad to be here, because you three adults here listening to us, our opinions, and hearing our voice, speaking for many students, it's important that respect on both sides of the party needs to be there. And it doesn't always have to be, a hierarchy thing. I'm the adult, I'm a teacher, I'm a principal, I can do this, and you have to abide and listen. Yes, we do need to listen, but what about having an open mindset? Put the ego away. Listen to us. We're trying to tell you what's going on. So that's another major issue I feel like needs to be talked about.
I think it's very important for teachers and staff to always provide students support, especially those in need of it. I think it's important that students know that, teachers and staff are always there for them in case, if they need help or anything. So definitely providing support to students.
Exactly, because it's not just a job. Like, yes, some teachers just wake up every day, it's like, okay, I'm here to go teach a class, and then I'm going to go home, grade some work, and that's it. But it's way more to it. When students see a teacher that love their job and love the students too, it's a completely different environment. And again, that is another way to help students feel more engaged and respected. Instead of just always looking at it, it's just a job, or you're just a student, I won't see you again in 4 years. What if you do? I could work with you maybe in the next 8 years.
It's happened.
And it could be a positive.
It sure has.
Yeah.
That's good life advice, too. It's in my career, I've thought of that many times, that the people that I work with at one time, they could be my boss at another time. And that's true about students, too. You're at an age where your career could go quickly, and you could be someone's boss that that right now they're your teacher. You never know.
All right, so now we need some more advice. So it was great talking to the adults. What do you want to say to your peers? Right, so if thousands of people listen to this and hopefully students catch on and go, oh, hey, there's this cool podcast, I want to check it out, because you're going to go home and tell your friends, right? Hey, make sure I was on this. You need to listen to it. What advice would you give them? What advice, like lessons learned, right? So whether it's your whole time in high school or almost your whole time in high school, but really being the generation that's had to face something that no one else has, what would you say to your peers?
I think one of the quotes that's gotten me through not just the pandemic and everything that's happened, but through a lot of my high school experiences, is that you have to break down to break through. And I really found that comforting in a way, because there's often times where you just feel like you're not going to make it, you just can't do it anymore. But it's kind of that whole mindset that when you hit the bottom, the only way to go is up. So I think we have to all acknowledge that it's okay to not be okay sometimes, and realize, what, I am really bummed that my graduation got canceled, but I'm excited that I'm going to go to college, or that I still got to learn from this, and I went through this with a lot of people who are just like me. So I think it's really cool that we all came together, and I think we have to keep that in mind and just remember to not to focus on the bigger picture rather than to just focus on the one small moment that might be bad. It's okay to just feel it for a second, but then you can move forward.
I think it's important to know that, everything you do would be worth it in the future. if you work really hard and you stay motivated and, you make your education your priority, eventually you will, have time to relax and worry about yourself, but, complete your assignments and get it done. And then, you'll be able to enjoy yourself.
My advice, a philosophy I live with now, finally got it through my head in sophomore year, pick and choose your battles. That is a very important lesson I learned, and that could be applied to school, home, work, your own self, whatever it is that you're dealing with, pick and choose your battles. Because as students, we know what we're doing. we clearly know what we're doing. If we don't have a clear path of what we're doing, we have an idea. And we know how we're going to handle ourselves. We know how we're going to handle this assignment. We know what we're going to do the next day. God, we over-anticipate and overthink so much, we plan out the next week to come. But when you do that, you need to pick and choose your battles on how you're going to attack the problem. Or it doesn't have to be a problem, the situation, the assignment. That's the best thing I could say to our students, because when you do that at school, that can help you pick and choose if you're going to be focused on some drama or something on Instagram, or if you're going to focus on some schoolwork that will help you get further in life. So that's the best thing. And again, it doesn't have to focus on school. It could focus with yourself. Pick and choose your battles.
So 5 years out, you look back at this experience. You're all out of college at that point, right? Because you're going to be out of college in 5 years. What's your takeaway looking backwards 5 years away on this experience?
LBUSD is the best district. I've always believed that. So I'm just be a very proud LBUSD student as I graduate college. I'm be so happy I got to be in this district. And with our final woman of superintendent, 135 years, and we finally have a woman in chair. Proud. Girl power. Proud of that.
I agree. I'm really definitely have LBUSD pride, and I think that this district is really unique in that a lot of the students are at the forefront of change and what's going on. There's always students involved, and I know that I've had many opportunities to get involved in my school, in the district, outside in the community, and I think that that's something really unique about LBUSD, and I'm just really glad that I got to be a part of it.
Definitely. LBUSD, will always be home. And I think when you look at this experience, you're going to experience new opportunities in the future, and you'll look back and this is just one of them. And you'll be thankful for, experiencing it and making history.
All right, Dr. Brown, Dr. Baker, any other questions you'd like to ask our guests before we transition to the second part of the show?
Do you have 3 or 4 more hours done with us? No. No.
What's something that you're looking forward to doing during summer?
Well, I'm participating in this USC Boulevard Scholars thing. I guess they have different students from all around the America, and they come together and they focus on college prep and taking practice tests like SAT and ACT. So that's something I'm really looking forward to, interacting with different students.
Excellent. Yeah.
I'm doing dual enrollment with LBCC to get an early start for some classes for senior year. With Milliken's new class requirements, they're planning on cutting some classes if we exceed the limit. So I'm honestly looking forward to that, because with that, I'm also trying to get a head start on a college class I wanted to do. So I'm looking forward to that. And now with this being phase 3 of California opening up, I think, schools reopen, not fully reopen, but hopefully we can at least get football back going. Because I was supposed to be training with them, with the management team. It took me 3 years to finally get on the team officially, and this was supposed to be the year. So hopefully they'll be back on and I'll be able to go ahead and get my training in.
I recently started thinking about a career in law, and Susie Price is one of my good family friends, so she offered me to be her intern for the summer and to just see what she does as a prosecutor. So I'll be working at the district attorney's office, so I'm really excited to gain that experience and possibly make connections that I can take with me after I get my undergraduate degree.
And where are you headed in the fall?
I'll be attending UCSB.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
And it's it's always encouraging for us to sit with students. Always. That's why we're in this profession. You don't go into this profession unless you truly love working with students. But it's even more inspiring right now to hear your plans, that you're already thinking of next steps and what you're doing and what you're looking forward to. You're not letting this define you, and that's a big theme of like our graduation this year. Our virtual graduation is really that you've experienced this, but it doesn't define you. It's what comes out of that, and for the generation that's not graduated, right, we still have more hurdles, to face, but really that you're already thinking ahead. And so that's so powerful. So just commend all three of you for that you're not letting this be the thing, right, that defines your life.
Yeah, you are bright stars, all of you, really. To see you sit across from us, it's really inspiring. So thank you for making time to be with us today, really.
Thank you for the opportunity.
All right, so at this point in the show, I'd like to thank our LBUSD student leaders, April Brown from Millikan High School, Mina Mata from Wilson High School, and Jaslyn Tupu from Jordan High School. Thank you so much for being willing to join us and share your perspectives. And Mina, congrats for being part of the class of 2020 and for your accomplishments as you're set to graduate on Thursday. And to April and Jaslyn, who will be starting their senior years as part of the class of 2021 in the fall. So thank you for being here. All right, welcome back. This is episode 2 of our LBUSD podcast. We are here with incoming superintendent, Dr. Jill Baker, and incoming Deputy Superintendent, Tiffany Brown. Welcome back. After talking to our students, I think that was pretty awesome to get there.
It was amazing.
So we've talked, we gave students this opportunity, right, a small group of students to kind of share their perspective and voice. When we think about how massive our system is with, tens of thousands of employees, over 70,000 families, what's the value of individual student perspectives when thinking about how we ensure equity? Where do you two as leaders think of that, of those single conversations you have?
Yeah, a couple things come to mind for me right away. The first is that we know that students are the most reliable source of information about their experience. And so without their voice, it's adults trying to describe what we think goes on for students. And even young children are able to give feedback to their teachers and their principals and other staff when they're asked. And certainly our older youth can really come to the table and provide that voice. So I often think about the lived experience of students and how important it is to get glimpses of that and to hear them voice their lived experience in the work that we do as a school district.
The generational experience of students right now is very different than ours. We were more the do as you're told, don't say your opinion too much, and just keep it quiet. And we expect students to collaborate in their own life right now. And we really value creating ways for them to self-advocate. When you're effectively self-advocating, it means you're being heard. And so we regularly have examples of where, when asked, students will really tell with no filter. So it makes it real easy to just know where they're coming from. And then with every opportunity that they have to share, there's an opportunity to teach about the way effective communication looks, about perspective taking of other people, about how empathy can be a part of, and we heard that in our students today. They've all had a story in the last year, but they all expressed empathy for one another and for students as a whole for the experience that has taken place. So we just continually learn that what they have to say not only matters, but it's really got value in our planning.
I think about that too, that our teachers have such an amazing impact on students. And since I left the classroom years ago, I've always thought about seizing any opportunity I can to come alongside teachers and to continue to develop myself as a teacher. And so while I don't teach a class in a school building every day, any chance I get to be with students and to be a teacher, as Tiffany shared, has become important to me. And I've learned, especially over the last several years, with the kinds of interactions I've had with CFJ youth who are supported in their readiness to come into adult spaces, that students are ready for that. They just sometimes need the nudge, or as our 3 young women today represented, they need someone to ask them or to create the space for it. But once they're in it, they've got it. They've got it, and they can really contribute to the thinking of adults, which is greatly important in a classroom. It's also greatly important for decision makers in a central office to be listening and teaching and modeling and interacting with our students.
Yeah, I think about that when we talk so much about data analysis, right? And how vital data is. And I'm from the social science English side. I'm not the math person, and so I've always struggled with some of the way data is just collected in general, culturally, and it's numbers, and survey data. And I was experienced at one of our schools where students were given a survey on feeling a sense of belonging, and the numbers dipped, and the school kind of went into this panic about it. Well, why are these numbers dipping? What's happening? And they're looking at all these pieces, and one of their leaders really dug deep into what was going on and saw that it was, do you feel safe at school? Sorry, not inclusion. Do you feel safe? And the numbers dipped, and they were looking at their stats, and they were saying, well, it's a pretty safe school, and this is just kind of weird. It was right after a school shooting in Florida, and the students were coming to school that next day, and it was like, the question was general, but these students were going through all of this other thing in their head, and so just that. You talked about that, those connecting with students, how vital it is to have those conversations, to ask them, to prod them, to get them to tell us what's really going on, because a blanket question can look like, oh, what does this mean for our system? And it's like, well, there may be more layers to it. And I mean, talking to our 3 students today, tremendous amount of layers in the way that they each connected with the questions. So with that,
yeah, I think about, before we go on, sorry, I'm pausing and just thinking about what you said. And I think that oftentimes our students are more complex than they have an opportunity to show. But when you get them talking, as you're calling it, layers, Chris, or we see that they have depth and connection to the world at large, more than sometimes we realize when we're coming to school every day, going home from school. But they're really, especially because of their social media presence, because the way they interact on different technologies, I think they're just connected to the world at large more than ever. And we have to be mindful of that. They're experiencing things, some of it virtually, but it impacts them. And so so many of those are adult topics, and that's why it's also important to have dialogue that allows them to ask questions, to have adults that will talk straight with them, or to really listen to them in a way that's respectful of where they are.
There's also the sometimes adult perception that it's hard to get youth to talk, and it's not. It takes asking the right questions. So sometimes the tried and true, how are you? Fine. What'd you do today? Nothing. We know that pattern, but twisting the question a little bit to bring them out a little more. What was it like to be you today? Tell me how the day began. There's so much opportunity for them to share, and I regularly find in travels and schools that they want to engage with adults, and it's real easy to get them to share. And then they're usually spot on in the perspective that they're bringing.
Yeah, and I think when you see a truly effective teacher is a teacher that starts there in their pedagogy, right? That it's that connection with every single student, not accepting that, that, hey, how are you? And the kid clams up and they go, oh, I guess I got to move on. But, building a culture in their classroom that when you come in here, this is a space where we connect, we interface with each other. And I love being a teacher and having those connections with students, but even really as an educational leader, going into a classroom and seeing a teacher who does that so naturally, and seeing the safety that it provides those students, and then it gives them that voice. And they're listening. I think that this generation has a moniker of, well, they're not paying attention and they're over here, and they're listening. I mean, Jill, you said that about them being more connected to the world and seeing what's happening. I mean, my 3-year-old daughter walked into the house the other day and said something about coronavirus, and we haven't really talked to her at 3 years old about it. I'm like, where did you hear that? And so if she's listening at her age, what are 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds, and I think we don't give them credit all the time for that.
They don't have traditional listening behaviors. No. And they don't always have listening behaviors that adults like to see, because they multitask all the time. They're wired to multitask. And so the listening that does happen, it just looks different as it's happening.
So we've talked about voice, student voice, listening to them. So as 2 of our top leaders, how does the feedback, as you've connected with students, how does that guide your decision making? when you wake up and you think about the weight of so many things on your shoulders as district leaders, and when you hear from other administrators, from teachers, from unions, from all these different groups, parents providing feedback, but you also hear from these students. Let's explore that a little bit. How, what does that do for you personally when you're thinking about policy decisions?
I mean, it's definitely just a driving force for me. In fact, when I think about just the worries of the last few months, the waking up in the night and thinking about thinking about what's going on, what comes to mind are images of students and what they're experiencing. So for me, there's that driving question in almost every decision we have to make. How will this impact students? How will this impact issues of equity in our students? How will this impact the experience of students? And so, I think in our district we've had a long culture that has pushed the focus on keeping students in the forefront, but it's a constant act of leadership to be thinking about students, and it has to be cultivated. It has to be brought out in the open to keep focus on students, but I think it's part of what drives most of us in education, whether we're in a classroom or whether we're in a support central office role. It's the why we do our work, and drives us.
They are the motivation for the work. A lot of the work that I have either done or had opportunity to lead in the school district has been around social emotional health and well-being, student sense of safety. And so I tend to look at everything through that lens. And then in listening to what their needs are and what they express, always trying to balance how that meets with the adult decisions that we're making. And kind of to Dr. Baker's point, really pushing forward the work through the lens of how does this impact students? What does this mean for students? What about the students that aren't speaking loudly and eloquently? We heard from 3 lovely, accomplished, successful students. But what about 3 other students who could be in those chairs who haven't had a positive experience in our system? What can we learn from them? What would bring them to school? And so it's not forgetting in our reach outs to students and schools and the opportunities we have to lift up those voices, not forgetting the students that might be hanging out in the park rather than being in class. What prompted that experience for them, and how can we learn from the experience that sometimes leads our kids away from school so that we can build in more opportunities to engage everyone and really hopefully make it a safe place for our kids to be.
That's so powerful too, because when you started kind of opening up talking about past generations having this kind of sense of responsibility that you just do what you're told, and when you go back to the why, like that constant asking why things are happening, like the students are the why. So when they're at the park or they're not engaged, that has to be at the forefront of why is this happening, instead of this is what's happening, that judgment call of you're just not following the rules, and kind of getting rid of that approach and saying, no, it's what are we doing? How are we not serving these students that they're not engaged? Where do we take the onus on that? So let me ask you a question. As having so many responsibilities and being around both of you so much during this crisis, and being on the 4th floor where it was, it's constant, almost feels like a war room sometimes, where it's just planning and strategy. And then even maybe before this, just in your careers as administrators, do you ever find times though where you struggle with keeping that? And I don't mean the heart of always having students in the forefront, but when you're dealing with adults and you're dealing with technical issues and you're dealing with budgets, are there times where you've caught yourself, maybe losing focus on kids?
I've never lost focus on kids. The connection to youth always feels different when you leave a school site. It just does. But if your heart is driven toward that as our end game is the social emotional success of students and as many instructional opportunities that are possible to lift them up. That's always the why, and that's always the core. And so it's not hard to live in that space, but it is hard to manage a large system and care for the needs of adults who have varying belief systems around how the work should look, even down to how the workspace should look. I think the adults in our system are driving towards the same end game, which is success for students. But it's in the support to adults that the work gets more complicated. It's never hard to hold the lens of students and the value of students in our system. It's one of the things that's been really hard around this time, is not seeing one another and not hearing the sounds of school, hearing the celebrations that they want to have, seeing the successes happening in real time. But no, it's not hard to hold focus on them.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I mean, I think sometimes there's that constant prioritization of work. There's prioritization of resources, and having to just shuffle things to meet the needs of the current time, whether you want to talk about budget cuts or things that happen at a school site, that kind of reprioritizing. But oftentimes I think it's the getting a group or an issue centered back around students that's what helps to bring a resolution or to solve a problem, when you really break down all the things that are being talked about and get it back to how will this impact students. It's sometimes, to me, how a breakthrough comes in a discussion. But, it also, I guess, I feel fortunate that our team at Central Office, there's diversity of thinkers, there's diversity of life experiences, there's racial diversity, and so we bring those experiences to the table when we're pushing towards policy or when we're having to make a system-wide decision. And that's also the power of diversity in thinking, that you take those multiple perspectives that spend time in schools, that have children in the system, that are looking at things from an administrator, but also a former teacher and a parent perspective. And all of that rolls in with a focus on students, and it's really one of the things that I think makes Long Beach special, and the way that we think about our work. So it's not hard to stay focused on students. It just oftentimes, you have to reprioritize and recenter students into what's happening, especially at a central office, because as Tiffany said, the farther you are away from that day-to-day work, interacting with students whose names and faces I certainly know a group of students, faces, names, but it's not to the extent of if I were at a comprehensive high school knowing, 3,000 names and faces. So.
Yeah, I just feel like that, and I don't know if I even framed that perfectly, but just that the day-to-day grind of a job, of having to get up and there's tasks and stuff, and how, for me, moving into administration and leaving that constant touch on being connected to students all the time and having to always remind myself that, of course, morally, my heart is always there. That's why I'm in this profession. But just sometimes when especially when with the roller coaster that the last few months have been in so many ways, getting caught up in the day-to-day grind. And I think sometimes it's a challenge, and I see it in friends that are administrators, and that challenge of hey, go back and put that lens on. And Dr. Baker, you've said it to me so many times about going back to being a teacher. The heart is really being a teacher, and you have to keep that focus. And that's really saying student-centered. That's really what that is. And so I think that's, it's being, I guess, the way you said it, Dr. Brown, being resolute about it. Like, of course, this is what matters first. And if we don't keep that ethos, then none of this matters in what we're doing.
Well, it's easier to say that in a place where all means all, right? And so we've really been stretching ourselves to honor the voice of everybody, the experience of everybody, and really pay some particular attention to those who haven't come by success in all ways very easily. So I think in the last few years especially, there's really been a focus to lift the voice of the vulnerable in our system. It feels really good as a system to listen and learn from valedictorians. And we don't necessarily need the village to rally around the valedictorian. We need an opportunity for the village to really ask the hard questions and say, what about the students who wouldn't sit in these 3 chairs? How can we make sure that we're reaching them? How can we make sure that we have opportunities for them? Are we doing enough engagement? What does instruction look like for them? What other types of resources? How can we engage their families more? So it's really feeling a lot of pride in being in a system where those questions are encouraged to be asked. And we've seen in these recent months that we're ready and willing to rumble with some of the really challenging equity questions that come out of a time like we're in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I also think about just having a lot of pride in the central office's focus on schools and how much time from superintendent to assistant superintendents and director staff in the business office, in support offices, the attention to spending time in schools, I think, is very different in Long Beach Unified School District than many other places. That it's different. It's an acknowledgement of that's where the work happens, that classrooms are where the magic happens, that even if you're a business official and you need to go out or talk to a principal about their budget, the best place to do that is to take your computer and get out to a school site. So that attention to really, supporting students and teachers and principals and support staff right at a school building, I think is something that in many ways it's easy to take for granted. But those that then come back and report to a central office, they bring all that. They bring their field notes and what someone talked to them about and what a teacher said and what a student said. And so it's like a natural influence to the way things are talked about at central office with attention to students and to the school experience.
I had a funniest thing last week. One of the assistant superintendents was out at a school site, and I was trying to get a hold of them. I'm texting, and they usually text me back fairly quickly. And I text, I didn't hear anything. I send an email, I send another text, and I had this deadline, and I'm freaking out, and I'm like, where are they? And I run in the afternoon, and right before I saw them, I saw an Instagram post where they were at one of the schools supporting one of the distributions, and they walked in, and I was like, man, you have a busy day? And they were like, yeah, sorry, I don't ever answer my phone or even looking at when I'm at a site because I'm there to be there for those kids. And it was just such a powerful statement of the culture of our leadership, of that they were like, I'm out. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm busy. You're an assistant superintendent. You probably have a billion other things going on, but you took the time to say, I'm going to go to this site and support, and I'm going to be fully there and present and engaged and mindful through that process. And I think that's powerful.
Yeah.
So both of you stepping into these new massive roles, right? Leading this district in this time, and probably, all that you've learned in your careers, what you've built and what you've experienced, the amazing things that happen in our district that you're going to build upon, and you probably had these ideas in your head of where you want to shift focus on certain things possibly, or enhance different systems, or maybe radically change certain systems, and then COVID-19 hits. And then, other current unrest that we're dealing with kind of in our country right now with the, some of the things around that's been in the media. Where are you at with that? It's a really broad question, so kind of take it wherever you want, but how are you feeling or thinking through, going from possibly excited about going into these new roles and thinking of where, as these leaders, you're going to make change, but then also having to adapt in a time that, it's not 6 months ago and we're like, the economy is strong and everything's moving forward and we have to get initiatives. It's like, oh, now it's disaster control while assuming these new leadership roles.
Yeah, well, it's a lot to think about, let's say that, to start off with. Something that I have said many times is that we're in the best place at the worst time. We're in an established, strong culture with great teamwork. Prior to COVID, we've had, 2 superintendents in 28 years. We have a great senior staff. We have experienced teachers. We're really in the best place at the worst time. Given that, I think part of it is the tension between leading for long-term success and leading for short-term success. And so until March 13th, the dreams were about long-term success, and they didn't have to do as much in terms of this immediate response. And so many of us have shifted into that. You got to keep the end in mind. You've got to keep student achievement for all with an equity agenda in mind. You've got to, think about excellence and equity in everything that we do. And we have to manage for crisis right now. And so we've gotten a lot of practice in the last 3 months around crisis, large-scale crisis, not just a small-scale crisis. And I think we've learned a lot as a team. It's also like many things, going through a hard time together creates something that you couldn't just create without having something to help you create it. I'm not suggesting in any way that I'm glad for COVID-19 or for the civil unrest that has come with legitimate protest about police brutality that our community is facing. We don't want any of those things, but we want the part that will help us to be better. And so for me, there's an element of hope in that. There's a reset that will happen in terms of taking our community to taking them through this. And we've got a great team to do that. So I think we'll all keep focusing on after the storm, and what that means to this district. And while we're managing the crisis and getting through the next year of this response to COVID, we will continue to focus on after the storm. That will require many things to be put in place to get to after the storm while we're going through it. And I look forward to leading us through, but also after the storm, and knowing that we are going to come out stronger. We're going to have learned so much. We're going to have different resources at our fingertips because of the learning that we've done. And I just hope that we will all unify as a district team. Our unions, our associations, every employee will unify around moving us forward together.
I have a lot of thoughts about that, but I'll say two. We really value relationship and partnership, and we talk about it all the time in relation to staff and students, in relation to staff with families. One of the reasons that we work so hard for relationship and partnership is for hard days. And so one of the things that we've really seen in this experience is that we have called upon all of those relationships internally and in our city and our county. And we've been in really, really good company with people who will do real talk with us, people who can guide us when we need it. And so all of those relationships that have been established around the district and around the city have really been nurtured in a different way and have been very helpful to us in this time. One of the things that I am feeling encouraged about, and that I think, as Jill really eloquently said, when we look to some of the long-term successes, we, Long Beach Unified, are being pushed to be competitive in a different way than we have had to be prior, because home learning options have given our community an opportunity to look for other options. And we're really motivated by the fact that we are a large school district that supports several different cities, and largely our population attends our schools. And we want to continue to stretch ourselves and really look for new ways that, as our community has opportunity to go elsewhere, we want to make sure that they're staying here. And we want to use the things that we know about creating strong educational programs and strong social emotional supports to keep our community here with us. So I think it's going to, through this time, which has just been nothing but a challenge, it's just been a challenge at each point, I think that it's going to grow us better, grow us different, grow us stronger. And I'm really motivated by that. I think we're feeling really motivated for that.
I'm laughing. I'm trying to not laugh as you're finishing about the number of times you said it's been a challenge. And I think one of the things that feels so strange is to go from March 13th to June 10th and frankly, ask yourself, what did I get done? What happened? And so it's been a very different sense of, and I don't mean accomplishment as if it is an accomplishment, but the work and the flow and the pressure and doesn't result in something that feels
like a product,
yeah, or a good accomplishment. And so as educators, we're used to driving towards, let's see the positive impact this makes on students. And in this, we're ending the year in a place, and we heard from our 3 articulate high school students today, it doesn't feel good. There are things that they can pull out, and you ask a great question, what's something that you've learned, or what's something that you're taking away? It was a great experience, but we're ending the year, and it feels really sad, and the community is really hurting, and so now we're going to close school with a community that's hurting. And so, it's a very different feeling from a leadership perspective and from what you typically feel when there's been an incredible amount of hard work, nonstop hard work that doesn't result in what it used to feel like.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like this unending wave of okay, when are things going to calm down? And I think also opening up wounds that have been there all the time that we, that as a society,
in many
we've
ways
kind of ignored. And I think, even when you say that, I think of the mass mobilization of food and feeding people that has happened. We had the mayor and Megan on in our last podcast, and we were talking about even that collaboration, and then today doing social media posting out of what our plans for the summer, and then even working with the curriculum department and seeing how they shifted an entire system to online learning in a ridiculously short amount of time. But then even in what you're saying, but none of that is, it's like not enough, it's like we still have so much more to do and so much more to adapt. And I think what you said about, and when you started off this question of, but we have the right people to do that. We have the right community to keep adapting and changing, but it's just not over yet, and I think that I think that's the exhausting part sometimes, is that, you're right. It's not it's graduation and it's done for the year and now we can readjust and figure out how to do better. It's like, nope, this is just ongoing and ongoing. I think that's.
And it's changed so fast. We've said many, many times that on March 12th at 5 o'clock, we weren't closing schools. And by March 13th in the morning, we were closing schools. And there's been an element of that the whole way through where it's, what's the next big change that's happening? Okay, what are we doing now? So the spirit of teamwork has been alive and well, as has been the need to just be very humble in the work. And it's great to talk about being vulnerable, and it's another thing to be publicly vulnerable and publicly make mistakes in a climate that there is no context for ever before. And so I think that it's been a really good opportunity in real-time team building, and that just makes us stronger. That just makes us stronger. Team building doesn't happen on a Post-it 5 minutes before you start a meeting. Team building happens on March 13th, where we're saying we are closing the system. How are we going to meet the needs, feed the children, teach the children, encourage the staff, clean the schools, take care of health and safety, and the list goes on. So we are stronger because of this opportunity that we did not choose. And we are going to translate that to students. They are going to be stronger too.
I think too, there's such a power in the forced humility, I think, in that, like hearing one of the students today say that they're upset and frustrated and looking at Mina, who's graduating, and that, being that pinnacle thing. And, in my work, being involved with the graduation and having to read constant comments of people just hurt and upset and frustrated and lashing out. And for me, there was a point where I had to kind of stop and say, you're right. You're right. It's upsetting and it's heartbreaking, and we feel it with you, and we don't have all the answers. And like you said, it changes so fast from day to day to day. We don't know, this new report's going to come out and then this is going to happen. And you're like, well, what are we doing? But I think it's forcing us to have those connections and work together, because we're not going to get through this if we're not as a system. And we have that, I think, that natural, we use the term proud to be LBUSD all the time. There's that Long Beach community that already has that connection, but it's stretching us to be more connected, in a way that we don't even understand, I think, right now.
Well, and the work that your team has led in these last months just can't go without mention, because you've pushed us to create new connections. So, we've tried video messaging, all the social media work, all the ways of reaching out to get voice out to students through staff that are at home making videos and sharing it. There's just been so many creative ways to reach for our kids. And we're really grateful for the way that your team has pushed us to do more of that, because it's led us to something that we will always do now. Through a hard time. So there are some of those things that have been an offshoot of the very difficult time that we're in, but it's led us toward a new normal of what we want to continue as a part of the fabric and the way that we do our work. So thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you on your podcast.
They've been an amazing team. It's been so awesome just to see them stretching
really,
them and just.
They're really special.
Well, it's also how you, into your central office position, brought the perspective of students, because a lot of the social media is youth-facing. And we heard from the students today, they're on Instagram, they're in different places, and we as older adults might say. And so I think that's another way that we've connected with kids in different ways too, that it just helps us to be with them, of course, during a crisis, but then in a way that will continue.
And even it's been so neat to even see so many teachers on, I mean, it's silly, but TikToks and these videos, like the mascots all dancing and all these pieces and bringing that out. And like you said, it's the new normal where we are forever changed by this event. And when things go back to quote unquote normal, we have all of these new tools and these ways to connect and communicate that have been, a lot of them have been there, but I mean, I'm only 40, and to me, it still was kind of like, yeah, that stuff's there, but it's great, but that's not my generation. It's a little bit younger than me, but really seeing that it's providing that connectivity. And I thought when Mina said the Zoom was the thing that has kept me focused in school because I got to interact and see my fellow students, and I was like, wow, that's powerful. That we have these tools that we can use and everything. So anything else you'd like to say, just thinking about leading through this time, thinking about our students and going back to that in next steps and kind of where we're going, or, how you're feeling about, as we kind of close out the chapter this year, this week, then we gear up for summer, in the next phase. Anything that you'd like to share with the Long Beach community?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good that this year's coming to a close. We've worked as hard as we can. Our teachers have worked as hard as they can. Our principals have worked as hard as they can. Support staff has worked as hard as they can. So I think it's good to have closure. It's one of the things that I actually love about the school year. Yeah. And actually, I love that there's closure. There's time for reflection. There's time for thinking and learning over summer, even while there's summer intervention going on and while we're waiting for all this information. So there will be tons of work, but I'm ready for that pause that comes and then the new start in whatever it is. And I feel really positively that something good is going to come in September. It's probably not going to look, as we've said many times, it's not going to look like school as we knew it before March 13th for a while. But I really have a positive feeling about what's going to come together. And so then we'll have another new year when the calendar year comes to an end, and perhaps that will give us a chance to, depending on what's happening, to kind of celebrate again the new year. So I feel really hopeful, but I am ready for our folks to take some breaths this summer and to just really get restored in terms of their thinking, to have some time to think emotionally for what's happening in the community, and to be able to, without all the responsibilities, if they want to participate in a peaceful protest, if they want to voice their opinions about what's going on, that they have the space to do that too. Because that's part of, I think, what's hard about this time for adults is that there's so much going on, and there's not literally the physical space because families are convened in houses or in small apartments, including staff and others, and they don't have the physical space sometimes to just let some of that go. And so I think the pause will help a lot of that.
I agree. It's time for a break. But day to day, I feel really encouraged, and I feel like we have ways of doing things that lead us well, and that will lead us into the next version of what well is going to look like. We use a lot of data in our work. We get a good idea, we research it, we try it out, and then we move forward with the fine points of what has worked well. We have a lot of good systems that we call upon that work in our system, and so I feel confident in and encouraged by those systems, and like we are going to have the right next thing for us as we reopen in fall. And like Dr. Baker said, one of the things I've always loved about school is it's a do-over every year at the beginning of September. It's like New Year's Eve happens twice if you work in schools. And so it feels really good to kind of take a break, take a pause, do some reflection, but really keep going. We are going to have a hardworking summer, and we're going to be ready. We're going to be ready.
All right, well, I think that we should wrap it up there. Thank you, Dr. Baker and Dr. Brown, for joining us today. And, of course, another shout-out and thank you to our awesome students, April, Mina, and Jaslyn. Were here. They were so amazing. And we're so appreciative for you to take this time. I know you have a billion things going on, but it's so important, like you said, for us to be able to talk to our community and use these platforms to further do that. So thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.